Hello people, me again. One little video for you. This one is from the UK Supreme Court. So this is their own little YouTube channel. And we're going to look through with cynical eyes. We're going to look through at their little video here and go through it together. And obviously I'm going to pause it and we're going to have some other little references as we go through. So the Supreme Court. Interesting. Flowers, they must represent something. We're going to go through the symbolism at the end. The Supreme Court, use of capitalisation of the United Kingdom. Of, for the benefit, like John of, John O'Brien, yeah? John of Bryan. Of is for the benefit. John of the tribe of the Bryans, yeah? So O'Brien is for the benefit of. So the Supreme Court of United Kingdom, for the benefit of the United Kingdom. Well, let's hit the play button and we'll go through and we'll see this nice bit of fluffy government propaganda. I don't know if it's propaganda, but let's say it's marketing. It's very pro this creation. Let's have a little look-see together.
Hello, I'm Stacey Dooley and I'm here today in London to find out a bit about the highest court in the land. It's called the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom.
Whoop! Have to pause it there. The highest court of the land, it's called the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom. Wrong. Incorrect. The highest court of the land being the people, and the land are one, and then she's immediately changed it and gone to, it's called the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom. Not sure about that. Just in case you missed it.
Hello, I'm Stacey Dooley and I'm here today in London to find out a bit about the highest court in the land. It's called the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom.
What she really meant to say is the highest court of the government. Yeah? Oh, right. And it's here in London. And I've said this before in my Uber video. Oh, look where Big Ben is. Look where Parliament Square is. SW1. It's in London. Their own road sign says, no, this is the city of Westminster. We are in Westminster. This is the city of Westminster. It's not the city of London. It can sometimes be referred to as London or Greater London, but to the layman, it's just London, it's over there. No, it's called the city of Westminster.
Well, here we are. The building has been here for 100 years, but the court itself is actually quite new. The guys who are now sat in there used to be based over the other side of Parliament Square in the House of Lords.
That's right. That was their primary residence. The House of Lords was all about the barons and the nobles. It used to be their house. In 2005, I believe, Tony Blair decided to change all this stuff around a bit and separate it out. Well, I'm not going to go into that too much at the moment. I'm just more interested about how they're presenting this information. They've got a local London girl, very beautiful, very pretty, presenting it, but she's very down to earth. She's not like giving the appearance of someone who's well educated in these matters. She's just really trying to. I'm in a London taxi. I'm a pretty young girl, and this is what we're going to talk about the UK Supreme Court. Let's have a look inside.
The Supreme Court is the highest court of appeal for all civil cases in the whole of the UK and for all criminal ones.
So, civil and criminal, yeah? Not matters of the people at law.
Except for those in Scotland.
Yeah, Scotland's obviously a separate jurisdiction. Now, if you notice the sign on the left, I just want to go back. They put this new symbol.
Who are now sat in there used to be based over the other side of Parliament Square in the House of Lords. The Supreme Court is the highest court of appeal for all civil cases in the whole of the UK and for all criminal.
If you notice here on the left, this Supreme Court symbol, it's quite clear there, so it's good. Behind it, they've actually covered up some engravings, so I am actually going to go down and have a look at what exactly have they covered up on this building, because that's quite unusual for people to actually cover up some ancient inscription with a nice new modern hip-happening symbol for some new court building.
Ones, except for those in Scotland. It used to sit in the Houses of Parliament, and the country's top judges, known as law lords, not only presided over cases there, but were also members of the House of Lords. But why was it necessary to move everything over here? To find out why, I'm going to ask one of the Supreme Court Justices, Lord Kerr. So why was the Supreme Court established as a separate entity?
A fundamental principle of separation of powers is a cornerstone of our Constitution. What that means is that there should be a division of responsibility between those who make the laws and those who are responsible, like me, for adjudicating on difficult points of law. And the Constitutional Reform Act of 2005, by establishing the Supreme Court, made that expressly clear.
The old Middlesex Guildhall building was chosen for the new site, and eventually the new Supreme Court of the UK opened in October 2009. As a result, the Law Lords became Supreme Court justices.
There we go. This is an interesting little show here. I'll let it crack on. The point I really want to talk about is just coming up.
And I will do right to all manner of people, after the laws and usages of this realm.
Laws and usages of this realm. People, and he mentioned people. It's interesting that they mention people, and then they immediately act in a capacity that's for government, citizens, and corporations, and other entities that need arbitration, if you like. Just look here. Interesting line out here. You see how they've got their symbol on the floor? They've got these guys sitting around, where the seats are actually put, and in the middle, it's around two curved desks facing each other with a central symbol on the ground. I think it becomes more apparent in a later scene.
When the Law Lords sat in the House of Lords, it wasn't very accessible to the public. It was pretty difficult to help people get their heads around what actually went on there. And as a result, very few people ever sat in the public galleries. I wonder if things have changed with the move here.
Working in the House of Lords was super in many ways, but here the working conditions are much better. We have much more space for our staff. Perhaps more importantly even than that is that we're much more accessible to the public. We have lots of visitors. We have a very good exhibition centre. We have extraordinarily good reception staff. They explain to their visitors what's happening in the court that day. They conduct tours, and generally we find we're a very popular tourist attraction.
I don't know what I expected before I came here. Probably that it was all going to feel a bit unfriendly and imposing. But being here, you really don't get that feeling at all. It's all going to feel a bit unfriendly and imposing.
Right, that'll do. So here, look here. I've got my mouse on screen. So look at all these little dashes here with the seats. And you've got this kind of sloping thing here. And you've got then this thing here. And the circle in the middle. It kind of looks like an eye. Now this is obviously in homage to our good friend. See? This is what they're acting as. They're playing as the gods. Because they can do that. Because they're playing as gods, the overall arbitrators of a system that man has created. Whereas, if you look at like the French Revolution, the rights of man come from God, and we have no power over God to determine how gravity works. Why the light shines, why the moons spin around. All these forces of nature predate man, if you like. We have no power or control over them. But when we get together and we create governments, we create corporations, we create our own little business. I might some gardening business or something like that. The business essentially is a creation of me. It's an intellectual creation. It's an entity. Sometimes you might refer to it as a legal creation, but essentially it's a creation that I've made. So notice here with the I and that, and we go back to this. They got the I and that. So you can see what the UK Supreme Court is. It is the I. It is the God court, if you like, of the creations of man. Okay, that's basically plain and simple there. Okay, that's what they're basically sitting down here. These are the most important legal people playing God to the legal creations that they preside over.
Hello.
I'm sure this guy would agree with me. He's ill. This is Sam Williams again. He's into his symbolism and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, here it's plain. To me, this is plain as can be. I've got some more symbolism to go through later as well. But here we're looking at the propaganda. So they're presenting it as the highest court of the land, which is not actually strictly true. It's the highest court of the government and basically all the legal entities that exist out there. Let's have a look. Yeah, let's crack on. A little bit more coming.
But being here, you really don't get that feeling at all. What you do notice, though, is that the courts here don't look anything like the courts we're used to seeing on the telly. So how does it all work here? For a case to be heard here, it needs to have gone through a whole load of...
This is quite interesting. They're just reeling it in how this is very much a Roman set of laws, really. This is how the tendrils spread out into the countries, into the counties, into the different nations. Okay, because here obviously you've got technically these are different nations like Wales, like Northern Ireland, Scotland, and England, and this is how it all feeds into the Supreme Court.
Different stages before it reaches the Supreme Court.
So these would be your local county courthouses. Here we are. Magistrate courts, tribunals. So magistrates would be the start of any criminal proceedings. You've got your county courts, which is where the people meet people, or the citizens meet the citizens in the legal context.
Civil or criminal case.
The High Court? Oh, I believe that's the one at the that's the one in central London.
In England or Wales,
and then you've got the Court of Appeal, which is what this new power base is that they're showing here.
Through 3 other courts before it will go through different.
Skip over Northern Ireland, Scotland.
This for criminal matters.
Here we are. This is a nice thing. So these are the 3 areas that the UK Supreme Court, the Court of the Government, looks over. So you've got criminal, you've got civil, and then you've got family. Okay, so criminal, I covered that recently in another video. Criminal is basically the laws, which would be, the actual laws of the land that the government and the essentially the Queen decides are of important, almost like antisocial, you could say. There's such detrimental effects onto the society that the legal society picks these ones up as criminal, and the state has the right to prosecute these against perpetrators of certain criminal acts. Now, civil is like debts between people, basically. If someone's done something wrong to you, have a debt. And then family, which in my opinion is the biggest breach of trust that the government can impose upon people by interloping in your family affairs. But alas, some people can't handle their stuff privately and can't deal with it, or they haven't raised their little bundles of joy in the proper way, which now obviously impedes upon other people's rights and freedoms. So then daddy government has to come in, sit as an arbitrator, or like an arbitrator essentially between mum, dad, sons, and all that kind of stuff in terms of being able to influence your family affairs. So family court, yeah. Okay. I mean, I can understand why it has to exist, because there are all kinds. It's different courses for different horses. You know what I mean? So if people have a dysfunctional family and it's affecting the society as a whole, then by all means you get dragged into family court, and they'll step in and behind closed doors they'll sort stuff out, hopefully to your benefit. I don't know, I've never been in there, but I'm sure people can explain their own family court experiences online or in blogs. So this is basically what it's saying. So all the courts, magistrates courts, you've got tribunals. Oh yeah, tribunals, there we go. County court, crown courts. You've got the court of this is Northern Ireland and stuff. Oh, sorry, England and Wales, here we go. So it all feeds up basically. Magistrates court, criminal matters, and they got, if they're above a certain, let's say, commission value. If the value is higher, then it will go, or the term served is higher, then it goes up immediately to Crown Court. And then the same with small claims court. If it's a small amount of money, it's a small claims, or it's a larger claim for money, then this is how they prescribe to you how you operate within the UK court system. And ultimately, they funnel you up, and they'll send you up here, costing you money all the way along to try and get some sort of redress for grievance.
The judges here also serve as the highest court of appeal
Obviously, we've got a lovely empire. Oh, here we go. I'll skip that bit. So here we go.
Committee of
this has gone to a different. This is a different system here. Look, a different symbol. So we've gone from the previous symbol, which, if you remember, I'll explain it to you, was an omega symbol in a circle with the main principal flowers that represents the nations within the United Kingdom. And here we have a different one. This is the Garter, Knights of the Garter, and it has Honi Soit Qui Mal. Mal is in malicious, so that just means evil. E pence. I think. Let me escape out of this. I got this one up ready for you to look at. Yeah. So over here on the right. So shame on him who thinks ill of it. Ill, mal, evil, all the same. So the Knights of the Garter is, I think the king was dancing with one of his cousins or something like that, and his pretty girl, whatever, has a stocking fall down, like her little strap breaks and it falls down on her legs, and I don't know, maybe her stocking falls down. And the people who were witnessing the king dancing with his cousin, they all had a little sniggering little giggle, like look at her stocking's falling down. And the king, quite rightly, picked it up and he put it over. I think he put it over his own leg himself. And what that actually shows is that the king is supposed to be surrounded by his fellow noblemen. These are supposed to be people who don't snigger at their fellow people, who don't laugh at others' misfortune. So the king, quite rightly, picks it up and sticks it on his own leg. And I don't think there's many people in that room who's going to then laugh at the king, especially in those days. So it's basically, we're better than this, people, kind of thing. Don't ever let this happen again. So the Garter, in my opinion, is more of a reminder: do not snigger, act honourably, act lawfully at all times, not lawfully, honourably at all times. And in a way, always strive to be better. So that's where I come from. But it's interesting we've gone from one symbol of the government to another one. So this is the Judicial Committee for the Privy Council. God knows what that is.
Privy Council. This used to be something the Law Lords did, as well as sitting in the House of Lords, and it used to meet at Downing Street. So when the Supreme Court was set up here, it made sense to bring the Judicial Committee over so they could work alongside it. And they're now based here in Courtroom 3. Only certain cases make it as far as the
This lady, if you go into my educational vids, look, there's Julian Assange in the background there. Jesus. Okay. So this lady here was in the I think it's IQ video with David Starkey. Really great video. It's about 45 minutes to an hour long, but my God, it's really good. You can just look at David Starkey trying to explain to these people about the lack of importance around Magna Carta and the fact that the laws stem from the king's laws. Okay, so it's really good video. It's in my educational vids. Have a look at that. But here we have an example of poor little Julian Assange, can't speak for himself, has to buy lawyers and people to come up and represent him because he's acting in the role as a citizen, and you have no rights of audience as a citizen. You've got to get a lovely lady to come and speak for you, and this is the kind of magic show that they put in front of you to keep you in the jurisdiction of the government, so that they can obviously have power, influence, and control over your actions.
Supreme Court. To do so.
So here's some cases that they've been deciding on. So judges agree that in the right case, a prenuptial agreement, so this is to do with marriage. So if you get married, prenuptial agreements could have decisive or compelling weight. They could, or they could not. I think in England, let's just say, marriage has been put to the same kind of standing as a contract. It's essentially a contract. Whereas before, like with Henry VIII, he had to run off to Rome and beg, plead, and argue his case to the Pope about why he should have the right to get divorced, and he wasn't successful. So quite rightly, he came back and got in a really big hissy fit, and he decided, you know what, we need to separate from the Rome. I can't have the King of England, my divine right to rule as king is not going to be interloped on by some guy of a religious state or power. So he basically said, you know what, I'm going to create the Church of England, and marriage is going to be a contract. And contracts, in any contract, if it's detrimental to your well-being or health, or you're an abusive or certain terms that mean that contract is no good, then that the marriage is just a contract on that kind of level, and it can be ended in certain circumstances without having to run off to the Roman Pope and ask him for an annulment or something in those respects.
They must address a wider issue of importance.
Naomi Campbell wins a privacy case. So supermodel, obviously, someone's breached their confidentiality. They've done it here under the Data Protection Act, but it's essentially you're using my property.
To society. This can be clearly seen.
We just saw Julian Assange there in court. So this is interesting. There's a little article here on the left. I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically he's got 3 counts of it's alleged against a woman. he had sex with a woman while she was sleeping and without a condom against her consent. So I know I shouldn't laugh, but she was sleeping, had sex without a condom and without her consent. I mean, who would go to sleep and say, "Could you can have sex with me while I'm sleeping? It's fine, and just make sure you have a condom on." You know, it's just such a ridiculous statement. But hey, I don't know. This is what they've done. But when I read that, I just thought, wow, that's pretty interesting to say that. Yeah, he had sex with me without the condom. Well, how would you know if you're asleep? And without my consent. Interesting.
In some of the most high-profile cases to find their way to the
girl loses bid to wear Fuller's manic dress in school. Yeah, basically they uphold the policy here. So it's not about law, it's about policy. The school uniform policy. They said, yep, the school has a policy, you have to updo it. It's nothing to do with anything about religion or anything like that. It's just following the school policy. Being part of that school, you've got to follow their policy.
House of Lords, or more recently to the Supreme Court.
Ban on non-European. Yeah, so this is obvious because, you know, if you've got a wife, I mean, it doesn't really matter how old your wife is. That's my property. I'm bringing it back into the UK or England, and you can't stop me. And they basically, knowing the law, they couldn't stop someone bringing underage, under the 21-year-old people coming into the UK because they're your wife. So that's quite a nice one. But I mean, you know, if your wife, if I'm 30 and I've married a 16-year-old, which is more than acceptable, and I'm coming back and she just happens to be from Indochina, excuse me, that's my wife. You're going to stop my wife coming into? That belongs to me. And I know that's a very detrimental way of looking at someone, okay, in the modern era, but that's essentially, as far as the law's concerned, that's what happens.
I've come to meet Lady Hale, another of the Supreme Court justices, and the first woman to be appointed
That's a lovely lady.
to the role, to find out a bit more about how the court works.
Well, we're an appeal court. That means that we don't hear the witnesses, we don't decide who's telling the truth, we don't decide what the facts are.
Wow, that is a massive statement. Let's listen to that again, just in case you missed that.
We don't hear the witnesses, we don't decide who's telling the truth, we don't decide what the facts are.
They're not interested in a retrial. And you'll see this quite a lot. In appeals, they're not doing a retrial. They're just looking at the facts that have been established in the previous courts. And basically, it's more like have things followed the right order, like procedures? Is it flowing in the right way? Does it keep in line with what she'll come on to in a minute? Is about the doctrine of what do they call it? I shall say at the end. What's it called? Precedent, doctrine of precedent, where, you know, this decision was made at this time. Do we follow that or do we not? Because we try to keep things in a standardised manner with our rulings. So yeah. So, but again, no witnesses, no rehearing of the facts. They're all taken as being true when they get to this stage. So you've got to bear that in mind. You know, all they're looking for, they're going to pick through the bones of what's been going on, just see if there's something that's not quite in line with what should be going on. Like it's very much from a technical point of view, not from an actual court proceeding, fair trial, all that kind of stuff.
The parties come to us with a set of facts and they ask us what the law is. We only choose to have the cases which involve general
Is that lovely lady again?
points of law, which are important to a large number of the population. For example, we were hearing a case which is all about what responsibilities the Ministry of Defence owes to the soldiers fighting in Iraq for the equipment that they sent them out to fight with.
So that's quite a good one, isn't it? Because the soldiers are employed by the Crown, and it's the Queen's Army. So what responsibility does the Ministry of Defence have to ensure that the soldiers, not, you know, the people who are of the people who were, you know, of the country, you know, they volunteer themselves to serve as soldiers, and I've covered that in my Your Country Needs You video, so have a look at that, about conflating yourself from being a man and now you're going to become a soldier, and when they're going to prescribe what you eat, what you wear, how you fight, how you're trained, what you do, and now they're asking here within the government realms, like, does the government have a duty to ensure that soldiers have the right equipment to do the job that they're supposed to be doing? And
what could be more important than that?
And
be
why
more
these
important than that.
points of
You can see it's kind of an internal review, the government checking over the government to make sure that it's all operating tickety-boo.
law so important?
Well, once we have decided what the law is, then everybody else has to follow it.
That's right. Once we have decided what the law is, Everybody else has to follow it. Now we are going to move on to this.
When you allow men to determine for you what is right, what is wrong, you allow men to determine what is good and what is evil. When you allow men to determine for you how much your life is worth, how much any life is worth, you turn those things over to humans instead of vetting everything through this Bible. It never turns out well.
Well put. Oh, good friend there. Phil Robertson.
So
it never turns out well, but look how well dressed and how well presented this lady is. Let's crack on.
the case about the army, it comes up to us. We decide.
Oh, particularly in terms of army, yeah. If you're letting someone determine what's suitable for soldiers, just happens to be a man acting as a soldier, maybe. And we're going to determine what soldiers do and don't need in a committee, not in terms of like boots on the ground who know what they're talking about.
The responsibilities of the government, if any, are. It then goes back to the trial judge, who will apply what we have said when he comes to decide the case. But not only that case, every other case that raises the same point, the judges in the courts below us have to do what we have said the law is. It's called the doctrine of precedent.
I wonder if how...
Doctrine. Let's look at doctrine. Doctrine. Oosh. Okay. So it's, again, Old French, doctrine. Yeah, because these are all a bunch of Normans, and I like a bit of a French language. Teaching doctrine, directly from Latin. Again, we like doctrina, teaching body of teachings, learnings, from doctor, doctrine, doctor. Suffix, abstract, there we go. So it's just teachings, basically. We're teaching you, we're telling you what, well, we're prescribing you, if you like, in a doctor's sense. We're prescribing you the law. Whose law? Our law. Roman law.
How the Supreme Court works affects the layout of the courtrooms, which looks very different from what you might expect.
Exactly. Look, again, these people are sitting around. So you've got the eyelash people sitting around the top. These are all the judges. Look how many they've got, and they're specialists in their various fields. And then here you've got all the people. You've got the people presenting the case, and then you've got the people who are probably, they're the people who've got the stuff on the line, like the people who actually got their ass on the line. And then here are the people who are presenting the facts, it looks like. All in this eyeball-shaped thing.
You'll see there isn't a witness box, there isn't a jury box, there isn't even a press box, because anybody can come in.
Because this is not a matter between man, a matter of law. This is a government review court. It, functions as a government oversight.
In and sit at the back and listen to what we're doing. We're all round a table. So the justices are in a curve on one side, and the barristers and the other lawyers and the parties they represent.
It's her again.
In a curve on the other side. And we try and make it feel like a general discussion of these very important issues.
Before we finish, I also want to ask Lady Hale why there aren't more women justices.
Why there aren't more women is something of a mystery. But there aren't a lot of women High Court judges and Court of Appeal judges. And that's partly because there aren't a lot of women at the top of the legal profession who are thought to be eligible to become judges.
And do you hope that changes?
Oh, I love this bit. Talk about symbolism. Remember, this is a video edited by the government.
Who are thought to be eligible to become
talking about women
judges.
And do you hope that changes?
Hand to the ear.
Can you see
revealing the pyramid earrings?
Women.
The pyramid earrings. Yeah.
In the future?
You bet.
I hope Sam's proud of me.
I hope it changes.
Yeah, me too. Now, it's very well talking...
Oh, God, this bit. Yeah, you get the toss in. Oh, hello. Yes, we're indoctrinated. Yes, we know all about the law. Well, in fact, we're all being indoctrinated into the government law. We know all about government law. Not that peasant law. That peasant law is terrible. Oh, I say, jeez. Not that dirty peasant law. You don't make any money from that shit.
It really is so interesting what these guys do. And I think it's normal to feel a bit overwhelmed initially, but once you find yourself here, The building itself is beautiful. The people are really very friendly and there's just a lovely atmosphere.
Yeah, building itself is beautiful. Yeah, always be careful of beautiful buildings. The more beautiful and impressive building you go into, you're going into more of a money-making private enterprise. Courts for money. And in law itself, money's not a barrier to justice. Okay, always get that in your head that you shouldn't have to pay for justice. Justice is a right. It's your basic right, like breathing air. I shouldn't have to pay to breathe air. You shouldn't have to pay to have your rights enforced in law.
We're all round. I have had a really great time today on my visit, and of course you yourself can come and check it out. You can either
check it out. Look, you see how street and like down to earth grassroots. Yeah, people like me. This is the highest court in the land.
book yourself in on one of the tours, or you can just pop down and come and sit in and listen to one of the cases. You can find out all about how to visit and learn more about the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom by going online.
Lovely. Does it change? No. Oh, there we go. So let's go back to this symbol here, which is the start of it. And when I first saw the symbol, I was like, you are shitting me. So anyway, I don't know if any people know anything about this, but look, you got this omega symbol here, which is the Greek final alphabet letter. It's like Z. So it's the last letter of the alphabet, and omega's been used in various symbolism things to mean the end, the final solution, the end, the last call, the last stop. Everything ends here. And I think I actually did that. Omega, here we go. So the last letter of the Greek alphabet, omega is often used to denote the last, the end, the ultimate limit of a set. In contrast to alpha, which is, I think it was someone said, I am the alpha and the omega. I think that was Jesus said, I'm the alpha and the omega. So they've decided, let's set up a new court and let's make it, let's use the alpha and the omega thing. Now you might be saying, you're talking a load of bullshit again. Now this is all conspiracy theory nonsense. Well, let's go to their own bloody website, shall we? Let's look at what they've said. So the Supreme Court's official emblem is designed by Yvonne Holton, herald painter at the Court of Law, Leiden in Scotland. Okay, whatever. The emblem combines four heraldic elements equally represented in the design, reflecting the jurisdiction within the United Kingdom. So you've got the flowers here. So you've got England, Scotland. Is that Northern Ireland? And I think there's a leak somewhere in here, which is which is Wales, which is what they're just explaining there. These four national elements, nations elements are embraced by a almost circular frame representing both Libra, the scales of justice, Libra, I don't know how that is, but I don't see it, but if they're saying it's there, they're saying it's there. The symbol is the final source, the finale source of justice for the United Kingdom. So from their point of view, they're saying this is the last point of call for our government courts. But what they've actually done, they've wrapped the country, the nations. They've wrapped the nations around the omega, which means something very different from what I would look at that as. It's the final solution, the final end. It's the end, essentially. It's the final justice, the end solution of the of the countries that constitute the United Kingdom. So it's almost like an advertisement of the end of nations, if you like, within this pretty pattern. So that's basically what I read that as. Let's just check I haven't got anything else outstanding. I don't believe so. We've done old Philly. We've done Sam. And that's it. So there we go. I hope I picked apart a nice bit of government propaganda. By all means, read it and watch it yourself. But I just thought it's nice to go through and kind of point out the bits that they're overlooking. Actually, and I've overlooked something myself. Actually, that's a different video. Talking nonsense. I'm doing 2 of these government videos today, and that's going to be the next one, so keep an eye out for that one. Catch you later.